Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well, and I hope the rest of your week ends well also. Now, listen to me carefully. I really want you to hear what's in this video. You know I'm not going to mislead you. You know I accurately and diligently informed you about Project 2025. I accurately informed you about Trump's attack on our civil rights and democracy. In this video, once again, I'm sounding the alarm about something very important. And that is, we must arise to save HBCUs. Let me say it again. We, Black Americans, must arise to save HBCUs. They are too valuable to our survival. Our ancestors created and built them with their pennies, with their fingers, with their sweat and tears, because they knew how crucial to our future HBCUs are. For example, most Black professionals graduate from HBCUs, including Black teachers, Black dentists, Black doctors, Black engineers, Black lawyers, and the list goes on. We cannot be the generation of Blacks to lose not even one HBCU. Now, that said, you may recall I released a video a few days ago explaining how one of Trump's executive orders takes the Supreme Court's ruling in Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard, that 2023 case that eliminated affirmative action, and they are now attempting to expand that ruling beyond just college admissions to attack all race-based funding and diversity programs, not just in education, but also business and government. Now we're facing the next phase of this MAGA strategy. Trump is now specifically, with the help of the GOP in Congress and MAGA, are specifically targeting HBCUs. Okay? His latest actions are designed to defund these Black institutions, these land grant institutions that rely heavily on federal funding. His executive orders and Republican-led budget cuts, all right, we're in that budget season now, are aimed at dismantling or defunding these very institutions that have served Black students and the Black community for generations. Ironically, Trump is the same man who once falsely claimed to be a champion of HBCUs. Remember, he bragged about making HBCU funding permanent, although that was a bipartisan effort, and he tried to cut much of the HBCU funding from his budget. And it was Representative Alma Adams of Greensboro, North Carolina, who had to fight his administration to get it restored. Now here he is in 2025 using executive orders to harm HBCUs. And this just makes you wonder and ask, how can Black Trump supporters, the pro-Black imposters, how can they justify this? Why are they cheering or making excuses as he harms HBCUs? Now, the truth is, HBCU land grant institutions have been fighting for equal funding since their creation under the Morrill Acts of 1862 and 1890. Today, their very survival is at stake, those land grant institutions especially. Now, for me, this is personal. That's because I attended one of these land grant institutions, North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University. And without A&T, trust me, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to get a college education. A&T changed my life. It makes me emotional. A&T admitted me although I was a high school dropout and I had never taken the SAT or the ACT. My family was poor and they couldn't offer me any financial assistance, not any. Yet A&T not only admitted me, but allowed me to come to that campus as a young, immature young man, and I matured on that campus. Initially, I struggled through school, but A&T stuck with me. So institutions like North Carolina A&T aren't just universities. They are lifelines, right? And by the way, A&T is the largest HBCU in the country, and it's the top producer of Black engineers, and it's also a hub for Black excellence in STEM and agriculture and business and so on. I am very, very proud to be an Aggie. Now, historically, Black land-grant institutions like A&T have carried a special mission of being the last hope for many generations of poor Black students who probably, like me, would have never got admitted in some more prestigious schools, I would say. And therefore, if we lose institutions like A&T, we lose more than mere schools. We lose opportunity, we lose innovation, we lose economic mobility for our people. Now, let me break down how Trump's policies are pushing HBCUs closer to the brink and why that should matter to every African American in this country, whether they went to college, whether you went to an HBCU or what have you. You should be concerned about this. On January 20th, 2025, Trump signed Executive Order 14151, and it's entitled Ending Radical and Wasteful Government DEI Programs and Preferencing. This executive order bans all DEI initiatives within federally funded institutions, including HBCUs, and it threatens to cut off federal grants for schools that refuse to comply. This directly impacts the 19 historically Black land-grant university institutions created to serve African Americans who were excluded from white colleges under the Morrill Act of 1890. Then recently, the USDA suspended its 1890 Scholars Program, which provides scholarships to students at Black land-grant schools. This means fewer Black students are going to get degrees in agriculture, engineering, and STEM fields where we are already underrepresented. Now, fortunately, the Trump administration restored the 1890 funding because of pressure from both the public and from some congressmen. That just shows you how pressure from the public onto the elected representatives and directly onto the White House can change things. That's important because of what I'm going to ask you to do at the end of this video. So what I want to do now is I want to bring up a list of the 21 land-grant Black institutions so that you can see who they are. All right, here they are. You see, I have my beloved North Carolina A&T State University in Greensboro, North Carolina, established in 1891. I have it highlighted. All right, but there are others. You see Alabama A&M, Alcorn State, Central State, Delaware State, Florida A&M, Fort Valley State, Kentucky State University, Langston University, University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, Tuskegee University, Southern University, Virginia State University. So there are actually 21 on this list because there were two that were founded under the first Morrill Act of 1862. So when you add those two and the 19 that were established under the second Morrill Act of 1890, you have the sum total of 21. So I wanted you to see what these schools are. And this list and some of the information that I'm sharing with you comes from a research paper titled Historically Black Land-Grant Universities, Overcoming Barriers and Achieving Success. And this paper was written by two scholars, Brandon C.M. Allen and Levon T. Esters of Purdue University. All right. Now, let me make very clear, these executive orders, these Trump executive orders, don't just take away DEI training and etc. No, they will gut some of the funding that allows Black students to access higher education at these institutions. Let's talk about how HBCU land grant institutions have been under attack since their creation. The Moral Act of 1862, you've heard me reference it a couple of times already. What it did was it gave states 30,000 acres of federal land to create land grant institutions. But there was a problem. Black students were not allowed to attend these schools. As always, we ran into white supremacy. So in 1890, Congress passed the second Moral Act, forcing states to either integrate their land grant institutions or create separate Black institutions. Now, I did a video a couple of days ago where I explained that we've been fighting for some form of DEI for centuries in America. I created that video because there are some Blacks who are being misled to think that DEI is not important. No, that is absolutely wrong, as we had to fight to diversify the Moral Act of 1862. We've had to fight to diversify, to be included, or to receive equitable treatment in many forms over many years. So we have to continue to fight for some form of DEI. So again, under the Moral Act of 1890, schools had the choice of either accepting Black students or creating separate Black schools. And we know exactly what those southern states chose to do. They created Black land grant schools. But here's where the discrimination begins. Those Black institutions never received equal funding. According to the same paper that I referenced earlier, in the 1930s, African Americans made up 23% of the Southern population, yet our land grant colleges received only 6% of state funding. 6%, that's underrepresentation. We should have been getting at least 23% if we were 23% of the Southern population. All right, so from 1945 to 1960, white land grant institutions got 99% of research funding, while Black schools got nothing. Nothing. To this day, states continue to withhold millions in federal matching funds from 1890 land grant HBCUs. Okay? So while Trump is trying to gut funding for these HBCUs, the land grant institutions, they're already not getting the funding that they're entitled to. I mean, we're catching it on both ends. And then to add injury to insult, Republicans in Congress right now are going through the budget process. And they are using the budget reconciliation process to push massive education cuts that will likely hit HBCUs the hardest. The House Appropriations Committee has proposed cutting over, listen, $330 billion from education over the next decade. Pell Grants, which help 74% of HBCU students, could be on the chopping block, most likely will be on the chopping block. Federal research grants that fund Black scientists at land grant institutions will likely lose funding as well. Now, why is this important? Because the reconciliation process allows Republicans to pass these budget cuts with a simple majority, which in the Senate bypasses the filibuster altogether. Bottom line, That means Democrats cannot stop the GOP unless GOP members cross the aisle and vote with the Democrats. And so why is the GOP doing this? Well, we know. Don't have to be a genius to figure out. Because Trump needs to find money to pay for his massive tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations. Instead of making billionaires pay their fair share, he's gutting education. And again, that will likely hit Black students and HBCUs the hardest. Now, we don't know for sure how hard HBCUs will get hit because the reconciliation process takes some time, maybe a few weeks or even longer. But a few days ago, the House had already passed a House resolution mandating the cuts that are needed. So again, at the end of this process, it is very likely that HBCUs will take a massive hit. Now, let's hope I'm wrong. Let's hope I'm wrong. Because when I bring stories to you like this, I'm hoping I'm wrong. But just based on the pattern that we see with this second Trump administration and even the first one, there's a very, very good chance I'm not wrong. So this is exactly what MAGA wants. This is their long game. But it gets worse. Trump and MAGA are also pushing to dismantle the Department of Education entirely. If they succeed, once again, HBCUs could lose vital federal funding. Also could have issues with accreditation and student loan programs. I mean, it would just make it harder for Black students to attend college. So, what can we do? What can we do? Or are we helpless? No, we're not helpless. We do have some power, and we need to use that power to help these schools. We need to arise and fight back. So here are three things. One, call your representatives in the U.S. Congress. Call your representatives in the U.S. Congress and demand that they protect HBCU funding. It doesn't matter if your congressperson is white or not. It doesn't matter if they are Republican or not. Call them. Call them. Shut their phones down, demanding that they protect HBCU funding. All right? Number two, stay informed, especially by avoiding YouTube channels as well as TikTok and Instagram channels that push disinformation and that justify everything Trump and MAGA are doing. Avoid those channels that dispense disinformation. And last of all, go in your pocket and donate to HBCUs directly. Please pick up your phone or go to their website and go into your pockets and make a donation to HBCUs. You are benefiting in ways that you don't even realize from graduates of HBCUs. So support the schools. Support the schools. Oftentimes, our schools, HBCUs, don't get the same sort of alumni support that other schools do. So go and support those schools financially. So listen, this is bigger than just DEI. This is about the future of Black education, which is connected to Black wealth, which is connected to Black survival. So let me say that again. This is bigger than DEI. This is about Black education, which is connected to Black wealth, which is connected to Black survival. All right? Now, thank you for listening to this video. I am Reverend and Civil Rights Attorney Augustus Corbett. Remember, Stay woke.